Hey, Farah, it's a pleasure to have you. It's really appreciate you being on the show with me. Can you give my audience a brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Teddy. It's an honor. We connected through Instagram, and yeah, we both in the same kind of in the same field of helping others, right? So yeah, my name is Farah, and I'm a neuroscientist, and I've been counseling company actually for the last 12 years, and scaling their businesses by using understanding how our brains work basically, doing their marketing a lot, and when we understand this, then everything opens up basically. And for the last year, I started my own company, Neuro Consulting, and I've been coaching primarily. Like not companies so much. I have been working with companies as well, but mostly like normal consumers. You could say like people, B2C. And I created my Neuro Mind Mastery program because when we master our minds
Mm.
and understand our triggers, and we know how to combat anxiety, stress, all the things that's holding us back from fully living and feeling fulfilled, then we can move forward in life, right? And then we can actually achieve anything we want. So that's
Yeah,
that's basically what I have been doing for the last year. Yeah.
great, nice. I always find it interesting that a lot of people pay attention to, building their muscle and going to the gym and feeling good about their body, but they neglect the one muscle that controls everything, which is the brain, right?
Yeah.
And
So we have brain muscle as well.
Exactly. So we live, and what I do is to coach men who have undergone a major breakup or divorce, sort of
Yeah.
rehabilitate them and get them back into the dating scene because we're
Yeah.
living in such an atomized societies these days where everyone's just scrolling. No one wants to make a genuine connection with each other. So I want to, help people to get out there and connect and, hopefully form a family and live the way we used to live because it's important to make that sort of genuine one-on-one connection with another human being. Given the fact also that these days, we see a big men's movement. One of them is called MAGTOW. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it's basically men going their own way, and a lot of them just isolate themselves not only from women specifically but society as a large. And as we know, no man is an island, as they say, and we need this interconnectiveness with one another in order to have a thriving life. So I wanted to ask you real quick, that what really happens on a neurological standpoint when you go through a big breakup or
Mm,
a divorce?
yeah. A lot of things happen. So it's kind of like an emotional trauma when you go through a breakup. It kind of feels like grief
Mm.
because you're kind of in a grief state in the sense that you've been with this person for so long and now you're separated. So it kind of feels like, I will say, very similar to losing someone physically.
Mm.
So I call it the grief state, which it causes a lot of stress in our brain, which affects so many areas. You get emotional dysregulated, and amygdala gets heightened, the fear center, where you're kind of in a survival state.
Mm.
Like everything is not calm. You feel distressed, and what happens is that your cortisol levels go up in the brain. So the
Mm.
stress response is like up here. So even someone saying boo to you might be like a bomb exploding. Like this is how it feels because you're so alerted, okay?
Mm.
Because you're not calm. Your neurotransmitters are not balanced in the brain, basically.
Mhm.
And what happens is that your decisions, making decision is very hard in that period.
Mm.
It's kind of like you have a brain fog as well, which means everything is fogged. It's like a shadow. And that's why it's really hard to make decisions. It's hard to do the everyday things you used to do.
Mhm.
It's hard to focus because it affects our prefrontal cortex, which we use for emotional regulation, for decision making, to focus. All of that is affected because amygdala takes so much over, basically.
Mhm.
And this imbalance caused all these feelings of anxiety, depression, difficulty managing emotions. Some people, like, they tend to like party too much or drink too much, or doing things they don't ordinarily do, being with other partners like physically, because they want to feel love, they want to have that connection. So people tend to go to extreme levels sometimes because our cortisol levels are so high that we're craving the dopamine more, and that's
Mm,
decreased in that period, right? Because we're off basically.
mm.
So
I
very
find
very
that,
tough situation.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of things happening, on a not only on a emotional level but physiological level, as you were saying.
Yes.
And from
Yeah.
my own experience and from some of my clients, where it gets so bad that you're in a state that you even call in sick for work, you're missing days off. And
Absolutely.
you mentioned some of the things like coping mechanism, like going out with a new person right away, or partying or over drinking, just to sort of
Yeah.
mitigate some of the emotional state that you're in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can understand that. And given that that is the case, are there any? You mentioned that there was a specific area of the brain, the amygdala,
Amygdala. Yeah.
that is affected, yes, by emotional trauma. Could you elaborate
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, so what it does is that not only does it like activate more the survival state, so
Mm,
amygdala is always awake. Just to make, I just want to make that clear that our brain is ancient, even though we are modern people. Okay, it always wants you to be protected.
mm,
So fear gets activated. You don't feel safe anymore in your new situation. Basically, this is
mm,
unknown grounds for you to be
mm,
divorced. Okay, because you used to be two and now you're one, so it is unknown grounds. So it kicks in like with 1,000 mile at a time. And what happens is that it affects our hippocampus as well, the memory part of the brain.
mm,
And that's why we tend to forget things when we're stressed out. Where
mm,
did I put the keys? We all know this, right? Where did I put it? Where are my glasses? You're wearing them. Oh, these are the small examples. You were supposed to remember mom's birthday. Oh shit. Like things like that
mhm,
becomes very difficult. That's only the beginning. And
mm,
then going to work, like you're not going to perform well when you're in a bad mental state, obviously. So
mm.
I actually do recommend taking a sick leave, like for a short amount of time, and
Yeah.
seek help,
Mm,
because you just went through something very big and you cannot continue your life as it used to be because things have been shifted. Okay.
mhm.
And this is what the majority does. They just go to work the next day.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
like
right. That's right.
keep on going on autopilot and feeling like shit. Okay. Sorry for my language. But
Mm.
this is not how it's supposed to be. We have to change this around,
Yes.
because what happens is that then they crash later. They just postpone everything and then
Mm,
they burn out. So
mhm,
rather take a sick leave, seek some professional help,
mm,
because you went through a traumatic experience basically.
mhm,
And that has to be dealt with. Yeah.
mm. And I find it really interesting that if someone has a physical injury, people are much more easily relating to them in terms of the pain and the level of discomfort that they're going through. But when it comes to breakup and personal issues, we've all been through it, but it seems like people just sort of dismiss that more readily than a physical. But when sometimes it's even more traumatic, because at least with a physical one, you could take medication, or you could do things to alleviate. But what can
Yeah.
you do to alleviate a broken heart, per se? In
Yeah.
terms of the part that you said about memory, I find that interesting as well, because, like, do you notice, maybe from your clients or your own experience, that when you break up with someone, you only remember the good things about them, and you sort of forget all the bad things and the
That
reason
led
why
to
you
the breakup.
had
Yeah.
to break up in the first place, right?
Oh,
And it's interesting how that plays into wanting that person even more, because you built up this sort of superficial idealized version of them instead of what really transpired during the relationship, right?
yeah, so I think we all have this idea and we visualize. The brain is visual, okay? The visual cortex is very much heightened in the brain. So the strongest sense is the hearing, like it's the fastest, but the strongest sense is actually the sight and the
Mm,
visualization. That's why hypnosis works very powerful, which I
mm,
do, and self-hypnosis as well. So we have an idea of this person, we envision something, a life with this person who we married. And
mm,
that did not happen. And then everything falls apart, right? So it is grief for sure. And yeah, we tend to go back to the positive memories because, oh, we had this beautiful thing, but then you had like 20 more bad things, you know. That's why you're here in this situation.
mm,
So it's also a coping mechanism, I would say. We tend to push the pain away by yeah, by going back. And the way memory works is that we have semantic memory, so we choose to pick and choose
yeah,
actually.
selective memory. Yeah.
Selective memory, yes, that's the word. Selective memory. So we pick and choose.
Hmm.
So, and that's why I work with rewiring. Like, it's good to remember good times because of obviously there were good times, but there were also many bad times. That's why you're here, right? You're going
Hmm.
through this, and we have to face all these painful memories as well. We have to
Yes.
go through them in order to heal ourselves, to
Yes.
understand what actually happened. Why are you in this situation? and,
Yes.
and many people are like caught in the past and they cannot move forward because of, as you said, of the
Mm.
positive memories. They're still
Yeah.
stuck like 10 years ago. It's like it's been 10 years, dude, move on.
Yeah.
you know yeah,
That happens a lot more than you think, and it's sad when when you realize that there are steps that you could possibly take,
yeah,
towards building a more resilient and to
yeah,
healing and hopefully to make you thrive again, right? So let's
yeah.
move on to the next question, if that's all right.
It is absolutely.
Are there some proven methods to help the brain recover from emotional pain or breakup? And some of the steps that I take personally is like meditation and mindfulness. What do you recommend?
That's very good because, as I said, we're in a grief state.
Mm,
So our cortisol levels are heightened and we
mm,
need to get them down and be in balance. And we all want this feeling of feeling happy and feeling like we're getting a reward because we're in a painful situation. So what we need to do is raise our serotonin and dopamine levels basically in the brain. And
mm,
how do we do that? That's where neuroplasticity also comes
mm,
into the game, right? Because the brain is plastic. Just like with our muscles, you could also grow your brain,
mm,
and you can work on all the brain areas as well. So what happens in this? We need a recovery phase, right? And meditation and mindfulness are absolutely key to imbalance the cortisol and
mm.
to feel more in touch with yourself, like also being uncomfortable, I would say, because many say to me, my clients, I don't like meditating. And I ask
Yeah,
them why. It's very uncomfortable. I don't like to be alone with my thoughts. It's like a racing car. It's like,
yeah,
okay, well, one day you will get on the other side. It wouldn't race as much. But right now, just let it race because it needs to be raced, like racing like that. And
yeah,
they're like, but I don't like it. I don't like to be alone with my thoughts. And
yeah.
at the first time is very like the beginning is very difficult. I remember it myself a couple of years ago. But even though you feel like that, it's supposed to feel like that when you're in the beginning, but you're
Mm.
still helping yourself reducing the stress levels by doing it.
Right.
uh,
Yeah,
and then yeah,
I
go
often
on.
say, well, I was meditating earlier just before this podcast actually, and I was just thinking to myself, if we were to do things that didn't feel good at the time, or versus the and actually is good for us later on, versus the things that are immediately satisfying, but which are ultimately bad for us, then we will be much more healthy, thriving individuals. And meditation is definitely a hard thing to do, and if you and the way I coach my client is that you have to take it in small doses, in
Yeah,
the beginning
absolutely.
anyway. Cut it up into chunks. Don't set out this grand scheme of sitting for half an hour, an hour.
Oh
It's
no, they would die. I'm sorry. Not literally, you wouldn't. But that's too much. I always begin with like I say I recommend 10 minutes of meditation. If not, five is better than 10. Like five
Mhm.
is the start, okay? So everything has a start and then you
Yeah,
can build on. It's about habits basically, having that in your life as a routine.
yeah,
Because when you have that base foundation, then everything opens up for you. It becomes more beautiful. You become more grateful.
yeah.
So you said meditation and mindfulness. I would say physical exercise is also very good for us. Go for a run, do strength training. Do move your body if you're feeling anxious. I always say that. Move the environment, like get out of your house, go for a brisk walk. And I promote a lot of NeuroWalk on my page, like every day, go out in nature if you can, because nature has
Absolutely.
a soothing effect on our brains.
It
Like
does.
15 minutes in nature brings down like the stress level by 70%. Only 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Who does not have that? I
Yeah.
mean, come on. Stop
And
with the excuses.
that reminds me of this show that I watched, and one of the characters said, like, everyone loves nature unless you're a psycho, you know.
Yeah,
And
but then
it,
I did have some people saying to me, like, I live in an urban area, and I
mm,
have a really long drive to a park or something green. And I said, well, you know what? It's still better that you're walking outside than on a treadmill in a gym. I still prefer that. Like,
absolutely.
it's still better to be outside. I get it. If you live like a long distance, then it might be difficult on a working week. I get that.
Mm.
But there must be something nature around you. Like there must be trees like on the street also, right?
It just has a sort of balancing effect, you know, especially when I go on a long hike somewhere. You know, I always say nature is perfectly balanced, and it just sort of has this harmony that's
It
very
does.
soothing, you know.
Very soon.
But on the topic of different types of exercise and activities, I was gonna make I did some research, and I was gonna make a video on sort of just ranking the top five sort of best physical activities to get over a breakup or divorce. And the top one apparently is swimming, and
Yeah, that's
weightlifting.
very
I'm a gym bro myself, but weightlifting is actually quite low on the list. Can you?
Oh, it is. I feel like a release because I'm doing something which I think is very hard for me. So I'm a runner, always been, but doing strength training on the next level. I have a fitness coach and she pushes me, and I'm doing so much, like my own body weight, and it's really hard for me. And it's like I feel like dying out of body, but then it's like, it's like a release. When I
Mm,
do it, I feel so good.
mm.
Each time, like it works. It just works.
And yeah,
But
I guess maybe
yoga is
it's
very good.
whatever suits you most, you know, whatever
Yeah,
your
but yoga is also very good for like connecting with your soul. So I feel like I do yoga as well. I don't do it a lot like I should be doing. I would like to do it more because every time I do yoga, I feel like I'm so much more in touch with myself. Like it's so soothing as well, just like swimming actually,
mm,
which is also good and it has many brain benefits as well. Do
yeah,
yoga, doing you
yeah.
stretching your body and you're connecting also with yourself at the
And
same time.
it actually really complement weightlifting. A lot of people don't know because when you elongate your muscle, you're gonna strengthen it and make it more sort of robust for the
So it
next
makes
work.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as a coping mechanism, I would say seek some professional help
Mm,
because there's, I mean, of course, social connections and friends and support is very needed when you go through a divorce. Like I have myself 2 times, so I know how it feels.
mm,
But the second time, I seek professional help, which I didn't do the first time. The second time, I was more broken because it happened 2 times, right?
yeah.
I was so broken that I couldn't function. I had so much anxiety. And I seeked help because all the methods I knew myself, even though I help people with it, is when you're in that situation, you need someone to help you.
That's
The
right.
doctor needs a doctor too, right? So I
Mm,
seeked help from 2 coaches. One was a sleep coach, and the other one was like a life mindset coach.
right.
And I knew all the things, I knew all the
Yes.
tricks, but I needed someone to tell me, do this, now you do this, and be my accountable partner. And that
Yes.
shifted everything for me. Like I
Yeah.
got out of it. And I was not sleeping because of anxiety, and that's really tough. I was not.
That's a really good point you touch on, you know, like even when you know all the steps, when you know all the methods, sometimes when it
Still
happens on
needed.
you need an external person, you know, like I
Yeah.
often say, who's the fastest man in the world? And you would answer, who's the fastest man in the world, you know?
Oh, is the
Usain Bolt, right? The bacon guy.
yeah.
But I asked, does Usain Bolt have a coach? And the answer is yes, you know, even though he knows all the tricks and how to be
We
fast, but
all
he's,
need it.
yeah, it's definitely useful. You
Yeah.
mentioned earlier about breakup and divorce being like grief. It's almost like losing a person.
Yeah.
And I recently watched a podcast with Andrew Huberman, who's in your
I do
field.
that too. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
was saying sometimes like it is even worse than a grief from losing someone because the brain can't sort of reconcile why is this person still existing, but I don't have access to them. Do you touch upon what he was saying? Or maybe Andrew
I haven't
Huberman
seen
as
that episode, but yeah. I haven't seen that episode because his episodes are very long, so I tend to
yeah,
drift off. Like, so sometimes I do the short bits
didn't
of them.
understand.
Yeah. I do like his podcast a lot, and I listen to it. And I haven't heard or seen that one, but I think what he means is that yeah, that person is still alive, so the brain has to understand they're still alive, but they're not part of my life. And it is grief what happens. But you saying he said it was worse than grief. That's what you said, right?
Yeah,
Because you don't have access to them. I guess in this world we have access to everything like we didn't have before, and that
mm,
actually makes it more difficult
mm,
because you can reach them on several platforms actually,
mm, mm,
and you can also go and visit them. But that's just gonna make things worse. Like it's not like visiting a grave, right? They're like living and doing
mm,
their thing, and it's
yeah,
painful to see them moving on faster than ourselves if we haven't.
mm. I think
Um,
what he means by that is that even though you could technically message them, but if they just ghost you, then you don't really have access
That
to
that
them.
feels like a punch in the stomach, right? And I think we all have done
Yeah,
that. So, and that kind of sucks. So you learn by doing those weird things, and yeah. So I still think it's like grief because you're grieving over something you had and now it's dead. Basically, it's not there
yeah,
anymore from one day to another. So you do go into a shock state, and it has
mm,
phases, right?
mm,
Like you also have the denial, sometimes like denial phase, and there's like acceptance phase, and there's like okay, my new reality phase, my new identity phase. Like there's so many new phases
mm,
you're going through in that breakup or divorce.
mm,
Yeah, from my experience, divorces have been worse than breakups, but that's because
mm.
I was married to them for a certain amount of time, and sharing kids and stuff makes it difficult, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that definitely adds, other elements that are much more difficult, in terms of access to the kids and finance and everything else.
There are so many things going on at the same time. It's like so you are finding yourself again basically, like each
Mm,
time I had to find myself because I was broken, and,
yeah,
and I got a new identity and I shifted things around, like and people get new haircuts or buy new dresses or whatever, but I work with coaches and I changed my job, I changed everything, I
mm,
started my podcast,
mm,
I voiced all this mental pain, that everyone invisibly is going through, and we cannot see it, but everyone has this
yeah,
pain, and this pain can turn into something beautiful if we talk about it, address it, and there are tools to get out of it, and and
mhm,
and that's what you were saying with the physical part, like it's not
mhm,
visible on you, but it's
yeah,
actually worse because it's invisible,
mm,
and we tend to procrastinate on those things, and divorce and breakups are very tough, and sometimes people are like, oh come on, it's just a breakup, like you'll get over it, talk to a new guy or
yeah,
whatever. I was told, like, talk to a new guy, or you just need to focus on someone else. It's like, no, I have to deal with the pain.
yeah,
That's just pushing the problem away, and then the problem, whatever it is you had in your past relationship, is
yeah.
following you to the next one
That's
because
right.
you haven't healed it, right? So that
That's
is
right.
not how it works. And
Yeah,
people tend to forget that. They just hop into, like, even when they're divorced, like going through a divorce, they have a new girlfriend or
yeah.
whatever. It's like they don't know how to be alone with themselves. And this is something I've been seeing a lot.
And because when you do that, you don't take the time to properly heal and properly sort of process what you've been through.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
when you haven't done that, you haven't, I would say, you haven't leveled up as a person. And sometimes you're bringing the same problem and the same trauma into the new relationship. And maybe it doesn't manifest in the beginning, but over time, you're going to
And then it
find that
comes,
it becomes a problem, and you're repeating the same cycle. So I always advocate for taking that time to
yeah,
yourself, and actually
yeah,
fully heal and understand yourself before you find a new person to share your life with. Neuroplasticity already and how
yeah.
resilient the brain is. Can you talk about, because I've actually been sober for a year now, and I've done it because
Oh,
my
wow.
partner, she doesn't drink either. So when we went on our first date, we both didn't drink, and I stuck to not drinking. So it's going to be a year next week. Very proud
Wow,
of
amazing.
myself.
celebration. I'm so proud of you. That is amazing.
I
Yeah. So when we
can't miss
stop
it. I don't
drinking, then yeah, so when we stop drinking, like we are more conscious, basically. So
know.
that's why it's prohibited in Islam. It's
Mm,
because of that very reason, because we are supposed to be fully aware of what's
mm,
happening. Because when we are drunk,
mm.
when then we tend to not be ourselves, right? We lose our mind, basically,
That's
and
right.
and we are not put on this earth. This is that's from Islamic point of view, but like to get out imbalanced in our brain, and that is basically what happens if we look at the science behind it.
Mm,
Not only does it affect our liver, but like we are not in a good, we are not conscious state, so we lose our mind, basically, to put it
mm,
roughly. And yeah, so we can do those things, and when we stop like drinking and having not those bad habits in place, we become more grateful and we open our eyes up to things we haven't done before.
mm,
And it's beautiful. Nothing wrong with like sipping a glass here. I'm not judging at all. I'm just stating like what's happening.
mm.
um
But in
so
terms of back to Andrew Huberman, like you can tell that I'm
yeah,
a bit of a fan. But he was saying how alcohol, how do I phrase this, is the only substance that could sort of be permeable, can pass through the membranes of different cells in our body, in effect carrying genetic materials from one cell to another that doesn't quite belong there. And I think that really scared me. And on top of
yeah, that
everything
makes
else,
sense. So I
yeah.
haven't really investigated it. It's not really my specialty, but
Mm,
I know that it affects so many areas that our rational brain, as we say, all the rational parts of the brain that we use. So they are kind of not in the forefront, which means we are not fully conscious of what we are saying. Even the
yeah.
words coming out, sometimes you have heard stories like people say something and you're like, what? Like they can break up with you being drunk, and then the next day, like, I never said that. Like, what do you mean? Like, we're still together. So that's a big example of how dangerous it basically is. and,
Mm,
and you know and we're seeing crimes as well, where people can kill other people because they are not in a conscious state.
mm,
So they're fully not aware of what they're doing. Their action behaviors gets affected. So it
mm,
does go throughout like the whole body. So I understand with the Huberman what is he saying, even though
mm.
it's not my specialty. So it's very harmful for us. That's like self-sabotage.
Yeah.
If you're drinking excessively, you're actually also losing brain cells.
Yes.
That's also
Yeah.
happening at the same time. The same with marijuana. That's why
Yeah.
people who smoke marijuana for ages, they've been testing this. Like their memory is so affected.
Hmm.
Like it's so bad. They have they have like what you say, blockages of areas from their past they don't remember because of that specific reason. So you can
Mm,
also grow more brain muscles, but you can also lose it, right? And
mm,
that's alcohol, marijuana, drugs is the good way to lose it, I would say.
mm. One
Very
thing I wanted
harmful.
to ask though, like, we know omega-3 acid is good for the brain, and what are like some of the food or supplement that would you recommend to boost that neuroplasticity?
Yeah, so many gut food, like, yeah, omega-3 is very good because we need to eat fish. But now many vegans and veggies will be listening to me. I'll be saying, but you all eat berries, right? So like
Trigger
nuts
warning.
and yeah, nuts and berries, and what you call kefir is also very good, with the the bacteria. What's it called?
Probiotic.
Now yes, thank you. The bacteria is good for our gut and
Mm,
our brain. And
mm,
like there's so many. This is not my specialty either, but I did do a podcast about gut health.
mm,
Because I interviewed someone who had it as a specialty. He was doing a PhD in it.
yeah,
So but there are lots of brain food that we can eat where we feel lighter and brighter. And we all know junk food. That's why it's called junk food, like the
yeah,
name itself. it's
yeah.
it's gonna give you this brain fog and dizziness. I have two clients who are suffering with dizziness, and I asked her, "What do you eat?" And she didn't have like what can I say, like a healthy diet, if you could say
Mm,
that. And all
mm,
the food was not benefiting her in any way. It's like it was fried and yeah, and too much sugary. So all those things are not
mm.
helping you with your brain, basically.
Yeah.
So you're kind of putting again yourself harming yourself. So it's like a whole cycle. It's not only alcohol or drugs who does it. Like food is also self-harming if you're not taking the right ones.
Yeah.
And that makes you more tired, more dizzy, more lazy. So there are vitamins in food that you can like take. And I
It's
always
so
lots of veggies. The green
yeah,
veggies are so good for us. Like
like really leafy greens, right?
yeah, leafy greens. And I put kale in my shake, and I put it on Instagram. I was like, I blend kale or spinach. Spinach were people okay with. And then I
Yeah.
did one with kale, and they were like, I'm not doing it. I was like, it's so healthy. And I wrote the benefits, and they were like, I'm not doing it. It's like, come on. You can mix it up with berries. It tastes good. And they're like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to fart all day.
Does it really have that effect? I didn't know that. It's
Yeah, it
similar to
does.
cabbage, I
Uh,
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if people don't like to eat it, I always say you could blend it up in a soup, in a shake. I cannot taste it. Like
Yeah.
I like all the veggies, so I don't have a problem with it. I just
Yeah.
I do one regular shake a day. It's like a good nutritious shake. It makes me full, right? So I share that
You
with
keep the fiber in when you do the shake, so you're not juicing. You're doing the shake with the
I'm
fiber.
doing a shake, like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I'm not. I juice as well, but I haven't done that really for a while. I do them
yeah.
mostly during Ramadan because I need
Mm,
extra vitamins. Then I'm doing
mm.
extra ginger shots and stuff.
Oh, I do that
So
as well. Yeah,
yeah,
it makes a huge difference. Like I haven't been sick for 2 years,
wow,
because I do
impressive.
the shot. Yeah, every
Yeah,
morning
so,
without.
so I'm Indian Pakistani, right? We put ginger in everything, so I have it
Yeah.
on a daily basis, and garlic as well. So yeah, I'm doing kale, garlic, ginger. Like this is this is my life. But here I am, like healthy. And you talked about sickness. I have kids, so I have one in in preschool, so I get his bacteria
Mhm.
sometimes. You know, other than that, I haven't been major sick, like crazy sick. I have asthma, and I didn't have an attack now for 2 years, actually,
Mm.
which is rare for me because I changed also my diet a lot around. So the food we intake and the people we spend time with, the books we are reading,
Mm.
everything that we are doing, the meditation, exercise, it all has this positive boomerang effect, right?
Yeah.
And sleep,
Yeah.
sleep is number one. Also, we have to
Yeah.
remember that.
I heard you mention a sleep coach, and I think I need one of those as well because everything else I can master, but sleep, like I can't get more than 6 hours in. And one of the root cause, I think, was when I was in the military, and during one of the
Oh.
trainings, they would wake us up every hour on every other
That's
hour
like
on
having
the
a
hour.
newborn baby. That is like so much stress. Wow. That is like having a newborn baby, basically. That is so
Yes.
tough.
So I haven't been able to sleep beyond 6 hours. Like if I want to sleep more, I have to fall back to sleep, which isn't ideal. But
Yeah, that
that's how
sleep
it
coach
is.
really changed my life around. And there are not many sleep coaches actually out there. So it's like a niche area. And yeah, it was very helpful, the tips he shared with me and the way we did it. In the beginning, I was a bit skeptical as everyone else. I was like, yeah. And well, I don't have a problem with it anymore. And I'm even using his methods with my client, and it's working. So it works. So I would recommend that for you. That's definitely
Amazing.
worth looking
I'll
into.
get
Yeah.
his contact from you. It's worth a
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We mentioned this briefly, and maybe we could close up with this
Yeah.
one. Is that the importance of relying on your social group, your friends, your family, your network,
Yeah.
in such a time when you're divorced and going through a traumatic breakup, and how important is it to establish these connections, and also to some of my viewers, if you don't have like these people around, there was statistics that was saying how they compare people back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, and now, in terms of how many close friends you have, and you know it was depleting incrementally over time, to the point where now some people can't even name one or two friends that they're close with,
Oh,
or
wow.
a lot of people have zero friends.
That's really sad. Like, even though we have so much access, like
Yeah.
today, is actually taking away the bonds, like in physical presence. And that's really sad because we live in a fast-paced world and so listen, we as humans, we're not supposed to live individualistically, like all this individualism, and we're supposed to live in tribes just like in the old days. Like
Yeah,
we're
I agree.
social beings, just like the animals. We're social beings. We're not supposed to. And but this society that we live in, especially in the West, like in London, Denmark, Scandinavia, Europe, it's like, well, I would say parts of Europe, not some parts are still very much like Spain, Italy, France. They're still
Mm,
very much like families and stuff. Moscow, not so much France, maybe, but I would say social connections give us that dopamine we need more than exercise
yeah,
or meditation or whatever. We need that social belonging to a group. We need that. It is so vital and important. We need love and affection. We need hugs on a daily basis. It is so
mm,
important. And I know many people are alone, like old people as well, right? They have no contact and they just have their worker coming and helping them, but they don't have that hugs or like we need
yeah,
that physical touch as well. We're not supposed to be living like this.
yeah,
We're supposed to be in pairs and in tribes, like in the old days, even though we live in this society. And I have a client who's he's a software engineer and he works from home. And he's like, I'm working online the whole day,
mm,
and he's in online coaching with me as well. And I told him, find some group, go on Facebook, find someone you can just go walk with, like a group. Just start something, a hobby, get some new friends, have a meetup, coffee physically, because
mm,
this is something people are even doing online, those things. And it's
mm,
like there are meetup groups for that. So if you don't have that network of family living close by, please do something about it, because you will find like-minded people like you on the same journey, and you will
yeah,
connect and you will feel this sense of happiness.
yeah.
So this is fulfilling, right? We need
Yeah.
that.
We need
Yeah.
we need more wholesome connection, and if we don't have
Yeah.
it, like you said, we should seek groups out there, whether it's on Facebook. It's ironic because we go on social media to find these groups. What else
But
you
yes,
gonna
but
do?
they have physical, like they have meetups and groups for things, and because the demand is getting higher and higher now in this society, right? And
Yeah,
the focus is on me being individual, like me realizing my things and desires. There's nothing wrong with that, but then
mm,
we tend to forget about the wholeness of the family and the group. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
I
yeah,
I remember. I think Bill Gates, like him or hate him, but he had one good advice about going through life is people underestimate the power of just asking someone else for something. If you see a group of guys who are playing soccer or football, as we call it in Europe,
yeah,
then why don't you ask if you can join them? You don't underestimate the power of asking. Maybe they'll be inclined to let you join, and you might form a friendship out of it. And I always advocate for meeting people in real life and making that opportunity for yourself instead of just sort of scrolling and swiping away. And you and I are both on social media, and as you know, it's sometimes it's very hard to get traction unless you're saying something really crazy or controversial, because people are so desensitized because they're scrolling all
it's
the
a,
time,
yeah, and
right?
losing brain cells. That's what I tell my daughters. It's like when you scroll, you basically lose brain cells
Wow.
because you're not even paying attention to what you're watching. You just like, so this is not good. I'm very worried about the future generation. So
But you and I are both in a good position to help, at least one person at a time
of
to
course,
to
yeah.
coach them
I
into.
actually do group coaching. I do group coaching and one-on-ones. I have both, yeah, in place. And group coaching is also very powerful. Like everybody can chip in if they want to and learn
Yeah,
and grow from each other. So I
yeah,
have several people in group in different time zones, and I have the one-on-ones as well. If you want to work like more intensely, like yeah, intimate with
yeah.
me, that's possible. Yeah.
I've not done the group coaching, but it's something that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll investigate.
Yeah, so I've been in a group coaching program for the last 8 months. It just stopped. I was in myself, as we talked about, ever
Yeah,
since 5 years ago. I had the second divorce, and I started working with coaches, and it's just been an ongoing journey, basically for me, different types of coaches.
yeah,
And I was in a group coaching program for the last 8 months. We did a lot of mindset work. It was a business coaching program, but it was
yeah,
so good to learn and deal with others, and we became really friends. Some of us, some came on the podcast, my podcast as well. You just connect, because then you're like, oh, I'm not alone with this. Like
yeah,
other people are going through similar situations in a different way, and we
Yeah.
can help each other out, all of us, and we can
Yeah.
learn so much from each other. So I really liked it. It just ended, and now it's holidays and stuff. So I still have two other coaches. I have a Reiki healer I'm working on. So it's like an
Mm,
ongoing process for me. And then I have a personal trainer coach,
mm,
who is also my client, actually. So we've been working together for
mm.
7 months, and now I become her client.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
such a great space, where everyone's pushing each other and supporting each other, either with the emotional or
yeah,
physical well-being, and I think it's such a
exactly.
positive space to be in. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
so I'm investing a lot of the money in my coaches as well, because I think it's important that I grow while I'm growing others, right? I have to do that to myself as well.
yeah,
So yeah,
I-
yeah, I
it's
recommend it. If people are going through this, like you said, divorce, breakup, it's very tough, and it's good to have support, but seek professional help, because you can be in that loop for a longer time if you don't do it, based on experience. Okay.
yeah,
um yeah,
yes,
because we have the tools, like, to help, to get out on the other side, and there is hope. Even though you cannot see it, there is
yes,
hope, and you can get on the other side. Yeah.
yeah. I think that's a really positive message to end on. But again, I really appreciate you being on the show, and
Thanks for having.
good luck with your business. And I'll
Thank
put the
you.
link in my video of how people can contact you as well. So thanks.
Thanks, Teddy. And I'll do the same, because we are doing it both.
Appreciate
So,
it. Good
thank you.
stuff. Thank you,
Yeah.
Farah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.